But today, after 75 years of independence, we have reached the 5th position thanks to the people of India. Thanks to the people of India. But if now I only want to talk about today's non-merit expenditures, and I'll borrow endlessly for it, beyond my capacity and means, it certainly becomes a matter of concern for all of us. Your state, your district, you tell us which product which is good enough. One, rest of India gets to know about it and buys it. That many things that we can produce, which we need, which are final consumption products, furniture, electrical fittings, even these are getting imported in a huge number. Prime Minister used to quote the example of agarbattis, which each one of us uses in our daily prayers every day in the temples, in Buddhist monasteries. Agarbattis are used. But we imported agarbattis. Some were manufactured in Bengaluru and places like that. But why should we? Is it a huge such technology which we don't know anything about? And therefore, that example of agarbatti became also the point which started being asked for other areas also. Can Saranpur, can furniture makers elsewhere in the country not supply us? Why do we need a wooden chair to come from elsewhere? If it is just cost, can we not support the Indian manufacturer in such a way that cost competitiveness is brought in? So the economy also, in a globalized world, must understand the vulnerabilities it faces. And states and center will have to work together, and that is why the scheme of one district, one product was brought in. Your state, your district, you tell us which product which is good enough. One, rest of India gets to know about it and buys it. Two, with good lot of funding given to them for common facility, packaging, exporting, finding the markets elsewhere, using our embassies and high commissions, we should be able to market that district product even abroad other than selling for India's own markets. Now for this, the technology again, e-markets, networking with buyers outside, all this is being facilitated. So the goal of developed India cannot actually be achieved unless many reforms are taken up. Imagine if the GST wasn't brought out. If the GST law hadn't passed, even today businesses will have to, at every stage, entering into a state you will have to pay octroi. Entering into the state for the same commodity you will pay another tax. Layer of taxation, one layer over the other layer over another. So the multiplicity of taxation and therefore paying the same item over 3 times all made India very inefficient a market. Today, because of that, you are able to see the ease of businesses. All India, the price of a commodity is the same, taxation you know. I know the number of days or years when Delhi, because it had lesser taxation, many from the South India, various states used to go to Delhi to buy their Maruti car because the tax was less, and they would pay a driver to drive it down all the way to the state in which they lived and save somewhere 20,000 to 25,000 rupees. Today that's not the problem. GST has come in, all items cost the same, all over the country, you pay the same tax as much as any other citizen anywhere else in the country pays. So you therefore will have to constantly remind ourselves, states and center will have to remind ourselves as to how to make the state or the country at par for everybody. The money it collects in the name of the cess is not kept for itself. Center has no terrain, if you know what I mean. The land area where the projects will have to happen are all with the states. Center doesn't have anything except for the union territories, a few of them here and there. where that money can be spent if you suspect that it is being spent by the center for itself. It is only the few union territories. But when you collect money in the name of infrastructure, cess, roads are everywhere. Roads are getting built everywhere. Ports are getting built everywhere. No one state is denied highways. No one state is denied major ports. Minor ports are with the states themselves. So even the cess will have to go to the states. So, but no, when we want to vitiate for political reasons and considerations, that center-state relationship is getting vitiated, you base it on this false narrative, baseless argument, statistically disproven argument, saying cess money is going to the center. No, it doesn't. It goes via the center to the states in the form of better schools, better teachers, better roads, better ports. And therefore, center-state relationship getting infused by arguments which are repeatedly getting disproved by data still allows that aroma, like a good coffee. You taste it, you know it's a good coffee, there's sugar in it, there's milk in it, there's coffee in it, and it's got good temperature, it is hot enough to drink, but still the aroma lingers. You prove that the cess has gone to the states, road, this much each state, data by state, but still we'll keep saying the aroma is. That vitiates the relationship, center-state. And media, I'm glad to see quite a good presence of media here, often gives the space to say no, but in the parliament this has been explained. In the parliament this has been shown with answers to the honorable members who ask questions on it. How much has Kerala received in terms of roads? Data is there. Money has not come in the GST compensation cess to us. Data is there. Parliament questions show the data. RTI gives the data. Media also takes these information and puts it out. But I'm sorry, there are some who would still do politics with it. So center-state relationship, unfortunately, periodically gets targeted because of political consideration, not factual considerations. The temptation to spend on non-merit goods. You create an asset. You want a school building, you want a bridge, you want to have a water tank in a village, you want to have a pipeline coming. All this is very necessary. But if you start expanding on contingent liabilities, which will be there for every government afterwards to keep paying it. Whereas when you create an asset, it generates revenue, not just immediately, but for 10, 20, 15 years. So the temptation of getting into such not so viable non-merit expenditure is very high in some states. And these overdues, you take a loan, not spend it on building an asset, but spend it on something today. You want to give something away freely to everybody with borrowed money. It is an intergenerational burden you are creating. For attending to today, you are burdening the coming generations. Fiscal health of the state gets affected. And by constitution, because it provides a certain article which says, Article 293, which says center can discuss and raise these questions, then it becomes an issue. Oh no, center state, how are you asking me? I am the government here, I can spend on whatever I want, it's none of your business. But if all states together in a fiscally sound manner take forward India, 2047 as a developed country is not difficult to achieve. But if now I only want to talk about today's non-merit expenditures, and I'll borrow endlessly for it, beyond my capacity and means, it certainly becomes a matter of concern for all of us. the DISCOM dues, the distribution companies on electricity, the dues which many states have, dues which have not been paid, is a case in point, and I wouldn't take much of your time to elaborate on that, we all know it. And also, constantly it is important to understand the share of revenue expenditure versus the capital expenditure. If your capital expenditure goes up, you know, in the budget, this budget and the previous budget, we have increased by about 34% last year, and again about 35% this year, the expenditure on capital goods or constructions. Build infrastructure. We are with you. 5.5 last year, lakh crores, 7 point something this time, lakh crores. And in that 7 point something, 1 full lakh goes to the states as interest-free 50-year amount, so that you build something, create jobs, create assets. Now center wants to give you. There were states which initially said, no, we don't want this money because you'll start monitoring us. Monitoring we do anyway. If you want a World Bank assistance, you will have to get it from the center, through the center as a back-to-back loan for some project in your state. That is monitored by the state center. So, vitiating a narrative, saying if I take this budgetary provision for 50 years interest-free to build dams or build roads or build some schools in my state, I will get monitored by the center. I don't want that monitoring by the center, I don't know, Pakistan. Vitiating this atmosphere. It is given at a time when you spend on capital expenditure, jobs can be created, the multiplier effect will be more, the virtuous cycle will set roll, and the revival of the economy will be quicker. No, but this is how we want to politicize center-state relationship, that if center gives money to the states, they come under the monitoring ring or the radar of the center, so we should not take it. Look at the element of toxicity in this argument. Will India have come this far if every state said, no, center, don't give me money in the last 50, 60 years? So this approach to dealing with center-state relationship of toxic arguments, even for legitimate activity, vitiates the atmosphere for center and state. Citizens are proud. Sometimes I just wonder if politics unnecessarily plays out too much in our lives, that this great country sometimes becomes less in self-confidence. We should not allow this moment in the history of the world, history of our country, to make us suffer for something which we don't deserve. We need our confidence intact. We need the pride that we belong to this country, which has withstood several tribulations. But today we are standing high, and that one example gives me the feeling of a sweet revenge, which I'll share with you. Couple of years ago, 6, 7 years, probably just 10 years ago, India was in the 12th position or 11th position in the global economy and its size. And who was in the 5th position at that time? United Kingdom. Today, even as I recall with some element of bitterness in me, Sir Winston Churchill, who said, oh, Indians will really suffer, they will probably be not knowing how to govern, the country is going to, struggle in poverty if you leave them. But today, after 75 years of independence, we have reached the 5th position thanks to the people of India. Thanks to the people of India. And I don't want to say the 5th position has gone down. The earlier holder of the 5th position has gone down. It is possible for India if all together, like the flock of birds, we don't bicker on our differences but rise together capture this moment. Think of Bharat Mata, the service that we all owe to her. Take this country forward, and the Panch Pran, which was said by Prime Minister during the Independence Day speech, just throw away, cast away the legacy of the colonial rule. We don't need to remember any of that. Well, I'm speaking in English, but I'm sorry, we don't need to remember any of that. That's where we need to be. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.